Hello, y'all out there in social media world, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Tiffanie Kellog here, and I'm super excited to be joined by Kimberly for our very first Friday at 11:11 Women Entrepreneurs Living Child Free. Welcome, Kimberly. How are you doing on this fine Friday? It's March the 7th.
Hello, Tiffany. Great to be here. Thank you so much for the invite. And I get to be a guinea pig, which is always fun. I do enjoy that. And I'm super excited to just sit down and chat, have a good convo.
So, y'all, if you follow me at all, you've probably heard over the last 3 or 4 months me talking about child-free women, entrepreneurs. Let's talk business, because actually Kimberly's here and I wanted her to be first because it was a conversation that her and I were having. We met. Did we meet at the Entrepreneur Summit, or was it another Michael Whitehouse event? I think
we met at a JV Connect event, or like a pre-networking for a networking event of JV Connect or something. That sounds familiar, right?
Yeah. So we met and I put a star by her name, meaning I wanted to follow up with her and chat with her. We got in the room and I don't know how we got on the conversation of child free and that, but do you remember at all, Kimberly, the conversation and kind of what has been your experience as child free? Because you're what kind of got me going of, wait, there's a group, there's people. What is this all about?
Yeah, I just remember, we had a great conversation. We really clicked. That's what I remember most from our meeting. I was like, she's a fun person. I like her, and I really just want to, hang out in her circles, if you will. And we got on the child-free conversation just because we were talking about, what motivates us, what do we find frustrating or interesting about, being a solopreneur, and getting started in this space that we work in. And I think I offhandedly mentioned that, like, yeah, it was so rare for me to meet anyone near my age. And that a lot of the times people treated me like their children because I was the same age as their children, or I appeared to be the same age as their children. And that got me on to, the few times I had actually met people who were near me in age, not necessarily my age, but near me. And one of them had a group, and I was like, oh, I loved this idea, but nothing really came from it. And you're like, wait, there's groups of people like this? And I was like, yeah, I hadn't even thought of it, but there used to be. So I wonder what happened with that. And I think that prompted you to be like, well, I'm going to make one. I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'll join.
Well, and it was just like the synergy was so awesome. I'm like, I like these. I want to do more of these. And as I've been meeting with more and more child-free women, I'm like, I like this. It's one of those things. It's what you have in common. And I know we have, other things in common. Like I'm a big sci-fi person. So I've got my Trekkie mug going on. I remember when I saw the new reboot of the Star Trek thinking, oh, that's a cool coffee mug. I really want one of those. And then I found it. I'm like, oh yeah. Like it's not obvious. So some people might look at this and not even realize that like it's the Star Trek symbol. But I'm like, I know, and it's good. And so like we have that in common. And so there's nerd summits. There's mommypreneur groups. There's, plant people. Like there's so many groups. And this was one, when I went looking, I couldn't find it. And I'm the type, if I can't find it and I want it enough, let's just make it happen. So I was super excited, for the inspiration. I'm laughing with people. Like I'm just barely in my second trimester. I'm coming up with this idea and it's going to give birth officially in the fall. But I'm like, I want to do this and I want to hang around with these ladies. And so I'm super excited, y'all. We're not going to talk about being child free the whole time, though it might come up one or two more times. But I really want to highlight just some amazing women, some entrepreneurs that have some tips for us. Because I was chatting with Kimberly before we got going, and she talks about, being authentically you and how you can use AI to make that happen. So that's part of the conversation that we're going to be having here in a little bit. But before we do that, so you're going to have to hang around. We're going to come back to that. I am excited to introduce you to Kimberly. She is a marketing strategist, coach, and podcaster. Over 200 episodes. That's phenomenal. I'm diverging from, I'm going to finish reading her bio, y'all. But if you know me, I'm just going to go. Because 200 podcasts, I think I remember reading somewhere that the majority of podcasts don't even make it to a second season, or
the majority of podcasts don't make it past 12.
Really?
Yes. So the majority of podcasts don't make it past 12 episodes. Now, that over 200 is a mix of two different shows, one of which is no longer on the air. And I don't know if you can still find it or not. But that had over 100 episodes. I have over 130 on my current one. And then I've been on dozens and dozens of other podcast shows. So it's a huge mix. But it just goes to show that there's so many places for you to share your message. And there's so many ways for you to share your message. And if you had to keep track of being somebody else while sharing your message over 200 times, it would be really difficult, right? It's like kind of an overwhelming idea of, wait a minute, I'm going to be this persona of me. And this is this is the face I'm going to show to other people. And I find trying to pretend to be somebody else is exhausting. And there is a lot of marketing out there where people are essentially doing that. They're renting somebody's house, and they're renting somebody else's car, and they're renting somebody else's friends to show up in their photo shoots and be like, look at my awesome life. And of course, they're sharing an apartment with 6 other people, hoping that it looks cool enough that people will start paying to watch their videos. And that's not the way I want to market. It's not the way my clients want to market. And quite frankly, it's not the way I think most of us are going to be interested in moving forward, because of the prevalence of AI and how easy it is now. Like, you don't even have to rent the car in the house anymore. You can just put a white screen behind you and make AI show you a background of all of that and be like, isn't it cool? So I'm rambling a bit, but the being authentically you piece goes back to, who are you and what do you want to share? So I think another interesting juxtaposition for me, at least, is that a lot of times I work with people and they'll say something like, oh, well, I don't want to talk about my family. And I'm like, great, then don't. Like, it's not an either or situation, because I tell them they need 3 personal items. And I don't say these are the things you get to bring on your plane, which I find funny because I just got back from a trip and I heard that phrase like 17 times. They're like, personal items, FYI, a blanket is its own personal item. A purse is its own personal item. That little baggie that you're carrying is its own personal item. Like, they kept going on about what a personal item was, and I found it funny. But your 3 personal items are, what are the 3 things that have nothing to do with your business that you're happy to chat about with strangers? And so for me, it's usually science fiction, travel, and reading, because it's what I love doing and it's what I spend a lot of time doing. And I'm happy to chat with strangers about it. As you mentioned, right? Star Trek and being a nerd.
I know. I'm like, ooh, I really like this idea of the 3 personal items. I'm like, what would mine be? I'm having a hard time narrowing it down to 3 off the top of my head, but I'm like, this is a great conversation to have in any realm.
Yeah, the 3 personal items, I get 2 extremes, right? I get the one extreme of, well, I don't want to talk about my kids. I'm like, well, great, then don't. Like, that doesn't have to be your personal item. But it's interesting that for the majority of women who have a child, like, that's their default. They feel they must always be speaking about their kids. Like, they're not allowed to have their own interests, which I find interesting. And they don't want to share. And I'm like, no problem, don't share. Or a lot of other people, they can't come up with 3 things that don't have to do with work. They're like, but I want to talk about meditation. And they're like a meditation coach. And I'm like, that's not a personal item then. They're like, oh, I'm a mindset coach, and they want to talk meditation. I'm like, you can talk meditation, but choose something outside of that, like your love of hiking. Or your love of going to find kitschy museums on road trips, or, the fact that you absolutely hate Star Wars or absolutely love Star Wars. Like, both of those are valid viewpoints, right? No judgment here. But, when I talk about your personal items, it's to make you a real human. It's to make you a real human being. And that is more important than ever now, because there's so many things where, like, is this written by a human? Is this from a human? Is this real? So you being able to show your authentic self just by talking about, hey, I've got all these fun travel stories, of which we're going to dive into, about jumping off cliffs. And I've got all these fun lessons learned from science fiction and those types of things. Like, there's these awesome posters that say things like, everything I ever needed to know in life I learned from Star Trek.
Nice.
There's one on my wall, and
well, I'm like, I don't have one of those.
Yeah, and then there's another one I found that's like, as science fiction lovers, we believe in, and then it's like all of the phrases of like the most common and popular science fiction franchises.
Oh, nice. Nice.
we aim to misbehave, right? If I say that, most people know what that means. That's part of the listing. But yeah, I mean, those are things that bring people together. They make a common connection point, and now it's like, ooh, I want to talk more to that person. I want to support them. I want to see what they're doing.
Yeah. Speaking of seeing what you're doing, I see we got some people here watching us live. Y'all, love to have you comment, interact. Just to let you know, you can comment Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. Sometimes it's a little funny and it doesn't connect. So you may have to go to this really hard to read chat.restream.io/FB, or just put your name in your comment. That way we know who it's coming from. That's kind of the easier way. So if you have any questions or comments, if you want to share your 3 things, I'm like, okay, does that fall into work? Definitely got to go the nerd, the beer and the dogs. I'm like, ooh, yeah.
Beer's a good one. People love or hate beer. And if they love beer, they love talking about why they love beer. So it's usually pretty good.
Yeah. So I'm gonna have to play with this. This is going to be a fun exercise. And as we're doing this, so we are brand new in creating this women entrepreneurs living child-free group. And so now I think one of our networking events, so we do a networking event on the 4th Wednesday of every month from 2:05 to 3:55 p.m. Eastern. And so it's open to all of our child-free ladies. I think one section is now going to be, what are your 3 things? And so I think that's going to be a great way for us to figure out how we connect. And so Kimberly's just going to get more kudos for helping us and what we're creating. So love, love, love that. Before I get back to reading your bio, because that's just how this conversation is going to go, what topics do people, because if you have a podcast, I'm sure you guest on podcasts frequently. So what are kind of your go-to topics if somebody's like, ooh, I like Kimberly, I like her energy, I want to have her out as a guest? What would be some of the topics that you speak on?
Yeah, so some of the topics I speak on, number 1 is leads on autopilot, how to put your leads on autopilot. What does that mean? What is the process? And it's not what people think it is. And another topic I love speaking on is email marketing 101, or it's like your crash course in email marketing and the top 7 myths that you think are most important about email marketing, which aren't. And then another topic that I'm just starting looking for podcasts on is AI powered marketing and how to use it to be more authentic. Because there's a lot of perception among people that AI is going to make us all look like drones, or AI is going to replace all of us. And I think moving forward, the human touch is actually going to be more important than ever. And it's really exciting because it can oftentimes be used to free up your mind for more creative pursuits, because all of the drudgery that all of us hate doing anyway can now kind of be outsourced to AI if you know what you're doing. So talking about AI powered marketing and how to leverage AI to actually be more authentic, I think is going to be a new topic for me.
Love it, love it, love it. And I'm one of those that I love AI. Now it is limited because half the time it's limited because of the prompts that I put in. However, I love it. And I think that there's so many ways that it can be used. And it's been around for a while, y'all. I don't think it's going anywhere, just like Google didn't go anywhere. Though I think AI is giving Google a run for its money sometimes. People are searching a little bit less using AI, but you can't always believe AI. So I'm sure there's plenty of myths that you cover in that as well. All right, so let me continue. Oh, wait, go ahead.
I was going to say, if you've noticed, if you've noticed, right, people keep talking about, oh, it's going to replace Google, it's going to replace this, it's going to replace that. If you notice, if you go to Google now, usually your top search result is not a website. It's an AI generated from Google powered AI generative summary of what you're looking for. So that's another way in which AI is changing the marketing landscape, because I'm of the controversial opinion that SEO is not nearly as important as it used to be, because now your top results in AI generative summary, which means that they take the best answers from lots of different places on the internet and give them to the person, so they never actually need to go find the source. And then you have your questions, right? Google loves all those questions and those prompts to keep searching. And then you have your sponsored ads. And then you have your top search result, but it's like 4 scrolls on a phone screen. So it's not nearly as powerful as it used to be, but it's still using AI, right? So it's like, where is that balance point? And, one thing you mentioned is you use AI in prompting, but there's so many ways to use AI that isn't about creating content. Like, for example, I am a little bit behind in my follow-up. I was sick for about half the year last year. So I'm like, all right, I need to like reconnect with people. So I talked to the AI and I was like, here's what I want to do. Here's what I'm thinking of. Can you help me? And they're like, yeah, here's exactly what I can help you with. I was like, great. I'm not sure how to do that piece of it. Can you tell me? And then it told me how to do it. And so now tonight, I'm going to be getting a very comprehensive analysis of every conversation I had last year, because it's going to correlate the meetings with the notes I took on my auto recordings. It's going to give me an analysis. It's going to tell me who to follow up with, who was warmest, who wasn't. And it's going to give me outlines for how to follow up. And that saved me like hours and hours and hours of time.
Well, and what I think is interesting is because, and this is just me projecting, would you have taken the hours and hours and hours and time to done it, or would you just walked away?
Well, here's the thing. It's been on my list since January
Right.
to follow up with last year's calls. Guess what? It's now March. I had already spent about 30 minutes going back through, like, going in my calendar, going all the way back to January and being like, that's a person I want to connect with. I don't remember who that is. That's a person I talk with all the time, and going through. And I started to make a short list. It took me about 30 minutes. I only made it through April. And then yesterday, I was like, wait a minute. I can outsource this. Yeah. So let me try that. And it took me about another 30 to 40 minutes to gather all the data, but I still would have only made it through August and not actually reviewed any of the conversations. And then I'd still have to like go find their email addresses and go do this and go do that. And so would I have done it? Most likely not, because I hadn't done it yet. But I also would not have been nearly as meticulous. I probably would have skipped 2/3 of the people I might have wanted to continue to connect with, because it was going to be too much effort to go back through and get all the information, because it's a huge block of content to go through. Yeah. And now the AI can show me how to do it. Right. And, again, you don't have to follow everything the AI says, but it's a starting point. It's going to make a spreadsheet with names and email addresses, which is going to be the most valuable piece for me, because that saves me from needing to go back through my calendar system, find the call, find their email, find what they put in as their initial answer, and then look at the show notes, or look at the call notes and see what all was there. Right. So it's going to just give me a more comprehensive way of following up.
Nice. I love it. And y'all, that was like a little bonus tip for us right there. Who would have even thunk? And that's what I love about this. So let me continue telling you about Kimberly. So she's a marketing strategist, coach, and podcaster. She works with her clients to craft clear, outcome-driven messaging, attract a steady flow of ideal clients, and deliver a results-oriented program others coaches envy. Love it. Her focus is on making marketing easy and simple, leveraging the power of AI and solid marketing fundamentals. She loves talking marketing, travel, and all things sci-fi. And I know we're like over halfway through the interview and just getting through the bio. However, I just think that she's already showcased and showed us some of that ideas that she has of here's how we can utilize this. Now, before we get into much more, and I know you've got this stranger checklist that we're going to talk about in a few. We did tease something about literally leaping off a cliff. Yeah. It's Friday, y'all. Literally leaping off a cliff. So you want to tell us what that has to do with you and your business?
Absolutely. So I was living in New Zealand at the time, and I was taking a year to travel and work. And people go to New Zealand for 3 reasons. Number 1 is Lord of the Rings. Number 2 is nature. And number 3 is extreme sports. And I had absolutely no interest in the extreme sports side of things. I was like, that's ridiculous. Why would I spend so much money to jump off a cliff? Because people go bungee jumping, they go parachuting, they do all kinds of crazy things. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm not interested. And I actually was told about this like a discount activity website you could go to get really great deals on the things that most people were spending money on. And I was like, well, if it's not like a ridiculous amount, I guess maybe I'll go do it. So I found a way. I got a bungee jumping thing, and I went. And it was up a mountain, right? So like you have to take one of those, it's the trolley cars on the trams. I forget what they're called. Gondolas? It was gondola. So you have to take the gondola up to the top of the mountain. Then you have to climb more of the mountain to get to it. Then you have to like go down the mountain to get on this like rickety little platform. And I was like, I'm not so sure about this. But anyway, I went and I did the first jump. And I actually ended up choosing what I didn't know at the time was the most difficult jump to do. And it's not because of why you think. So the reason it's so difficult is I chose to do what they call a swing. So you get put into this harness, you get put over the edge of the platform, and then you yourself have to pull the cord to go swinging. So nobody else can like nudge you off the platform, right? Like if you're bungee jumping and you're like, can you push me please? Because you can't make the leap yourself. This one, no one can do it for you. You have to do it yourself. So I did it once, and then they had this deal. $10 more, you could go again and get pictures both daytime and night. In between, there was a blizzard. Like, I'm in the chalet waiting on top of this mountain. I cannot see out the windows. It is a literal whiteout. And I'm like, this is interesting. Because we also, of course, couldn't get down the mountain while it was blizzarding. So I had to stay there anyway. So I was like, I might as well. And interestingly enough, it was more difficult to go the second time. Because you build, that first time you're doing something, you're kind of excited. You're like, yeah, I can do this. I can do this. It's just once. But then you know what to expect. And pushing yourself to pull the cord twice is way more difficult that second time because you kind of know what's coming. You know it's going to be difficult. You know what that free fall is going to be. And you can actually build it up even more in your head. And that's where having the harness, having the guides on the platform, having chosen the company that's been in operation for 30 plus years and never had an accident, like that's where all of that comes in to be like, okay, yes, I can do this. So I'm literally walking on the now icy planks to go and, swing again on this bungee swing. And I'm telling myself, you know what? If you can do this, it's not nearly as scary as starting your own business. And that was the thought process going through my head, but it's really important. And it gave me a lot of marketing lessons too, because many people I speak with feel like they're in free fall. They have a tether, but they don't know where to put their hands. They don't know when it's going to end. They're not sure about how to get started, how to get to that top point. They feel like they're in free fall, and that's where having a guide, that's where having your harness comes in. That's where having a really great coach to teach you how to use marketing comes in. And if you can do something that scary, then you can, become your own boss. And for me, that was the starting point. That's when I started my copywriting business, was on a snowy platform right after a blizzard, being like, if you can do this, starting a business cannot be that scary. But I like to use the metaphor of feeling like you're in free fall in your business. And that's where you find a good coach and a good harness to support you.
Love it. Love it. And I love the fact that you're using, kind of, here's your story. Here's what you actually did. You're talking about travel and just being yourself with it. And what do you have to say to people that are like, I don't have any interesting stories to tell about themselves?
I get that a lot. And that's because most of us have, the hero's journey in Hollywood is what makes people interesting, right? We have our heroes. We have Tony Stark and we have Captain America, just to, hit both sides of that argument, right? And, these are larger than life characters. So we kind of have this idea that like the everyday person is not that interesting. But what's interesting about what I've done? Not much. What's interesting about what you've done? Not much. You live in Texas. I live in Missouri. That enough is an interesting point for some people. Like if people are from the Midwest, they're excited. They're like, oh, another person from the Midwest. We're like an endangered species in entrepreneur world. Like I meet people from East Coast. I meet people from West Coast. And they're like, wait, the middle exists? Yes, it does. It's a different time zone. So please tell me which one you're using. Thank you. And then occasionally I'll meet people from Texas. But I am more likely, if I'm going to meet somebody from the central time zone, I'm going to meet somebody from Texas than from anywhere else. So I'm always excited when I meet anyone from anywhere else in the Midwest that uses central time because it's so rare.
Right.
But that's a bonding point.
It's another thing that people have in common.
Talking about the struggles and frustration of getting people to give you a time in a time zone that you then can translate to your own, it's a bonding point, right? So even if you think you're boring, there's something of interest to you that other people find really fascinating, right? One of my most open stories for years was about me going to the grocery store for chocolate covered almonds. I think the subject line is lessons from a chocolate covered almond. And it's about me going to the grocery store and knowing exactly what I wanted. I wanted some milk. I wanted some chocolate covered almonds because I was really craving, chocolate, but maybe it's healthy. And then I wanted like one other item, right? So I went to the store knowing exactly what I was going to get. Somebody had a sample station, so I tried it. I liked it so much that I bought 2 items of this snack pack that was supposedly healthy. It had like chia seeds and wasn't seasoned with salt or whatever. Like, who knows, right? It's not healthy, but you can tell yourself that. And I got 2 of them, and I increased my order value by 50%. That relates to marketing because your marketing should be a small taste of what it's like to work with you. Yeah. So I had just a small taste in the grocery store, and that was enough for me to buy and increase my overall order value by 50%. So does your marketing reflect you? Does it reflect what it's like to work with you? If it doesn't, you're never going to get that order bump.
Love it. Love it. That's awesome.
Now, but I'll go grocery shopping.
Well, no, it's interesting because I'm just sitting here thinking about, oh yeah, I do sometimes do see stupid, here's my lessons from MegaCon, or what I do yoga. And so I'm always pulling lessons from like my yoga side of it. And if people do yoga, they get it. If they don't, I usually have pictures. Like one of my goals is I want to be able to touch my hands behind my back. I am not there. Yeah, see, there you go. I'm pretty flexible. That is one. My husband, who is not flexible at all, but he is 6'7" with a 7'2" wingspan. Like he can do it. But I've been working on this for like 6 months, and I still can't get there. Before I was like this. Now I'm like closer. I at least now can pretty much zip up my own dresses without issues. That's kind of what started it.
Right?
Women's dresses, y'all don't even.
I was like, that's a whole other conversation on women's fashion and how it does not work by yourself, right?
Yeah. Sometimes I'm like, I'm married, yay. But I'm like, what would you do if not? I'm like, one time I remember I had a dress and I couldn't get it. I think I remember I left my hotel room. I was kind of like, all right, hopefully I'll run into somebody that works here that speaks English enough, because I don't know how to say zipper in Spanish, that can get them to zip up my dress. Oh, first world problems. Anyway, so y'all, I hope you're enjoying this, having a ton of fun. You can certainly find Kimberly online. Where can you find us online? And then I want to talk about the giveaway you have for us and next week's challenge.
Yes. So you can find me online on LinkedIn. I spend a lot of time there. Obviously, you can find me here on Facebook. I spend less time here, but I am here. It's Kimberly Weitkamp. It's exactly as it's spelled. I, did join LinkedIn early enough that the exact spelling of my name has no extra letters in it for the URL, because I have been in this online marketing space for over a decade. Hard to believe, I know, but true. Know, right?
We're going on like 15 years. Oh, it's like because I think I got on Facebook in 2008.
I actually got on Facebook. I will not say how old I was, but I got on Facebook right after it became public. So mine was from 06 or 07, I think.
Ooh. So we've talked about age. Do you mind telling us how old you are in case people are wondering? You don't have to.
I'm going to say I am old enough to be here. That's my go-to answer nowadays. When people ask me that at networking events. And it's so funny because I get a mix of answers to that. People are like, people actually ask you your age, they're appalled. And then like within a couple of minutes, they're also like, no, but really, how old are you? And, because people are just so curious about it. So to give you a concept here, I've been doing this for over a decade. Before that, I was an English teacher. Before that, I was an AV tech. And before that, I studied and traveled abroad for 2 years. Gotcha. So give you a sense of how long I've been doing this online spiel. Yeah, but and then you can also find me at go.theaudienceconverter.com/home. That link may not work right now. I'm moving my system over to a new system, so the homepage is under construction. But this link does work. Go.theaudienceconverter.com/stranger checklist.
Wait.
And
Are we stranger danger? What's going on with stranger? Can you tell us about it, please?
yes, it's actually called the stranger to subscriber checklist.
Mm.
Because when we interact with people on the internet, they are essentially strangers. Unless we've had some sort of networking event or they've seen us speak somewhere, we don't know who they are and they don't know who we are. So it's actually a step-by-step breakdown of every piece of marketing you need to connect with strangers on the internet and turn them into an engaged subscriber on your email list.
Nice. And I know that's what we get when we go there. You mentioned that there might be a little follow-up because something's happening next week, y'all. So if you're all watching this down the road, because that's how we do sometimes, we watch videos on YouTube from years and years ago. Like my most popular video is like 7 years ago. It's just continue. Yeah, it just keeps coming.
Well, that's the compounding effect, folks.
Yes, compounding. So if you're not watching this live, still go sign up, get the stuff. You can reach out to her and find out when the next challenge is. But tell us about the 3-day challenge you have next week.
Yeah, so I've talked a little bit about AI and how I'm using it, but there are so many uses of AI that is not you trying to replace yourself with AI, right? That's a lot of people's immediate thought process is, ooh, I'll get AI to write everything for me. And that's not really what you want to do necessarily, especially if you're trying to remain your new authentic self, right? Your true authentic self. You want to be able to own more of who you are, but sometimes we've got one of those slow idea days where we're like, I'm supposed to write an email. I'm coming up blank. What should I write about? And so I like to use the AI as a brainstorming tool, as a resource. It is another tool in your toolbox. It is not the toolbox, which is how people, a lot of people are using it, or people think, one extreme or the other in terms of how to use AI. So I, with my partner in the program, I'm running a free challenge. It's called AI Powered Sales and Lead Gen for Coaches. And over 3 days, we're going to teach you how to use AI for clarity, clients, and less effort so that you can build your system, understand what AI can really do for you, and start growing your coaching business with ease. Handing off a lot of what we talked about is that drudgery. What can I hand off? How should I use AI? And we're going to do it live. So we're going to go live once a day for 3 days. You can join us live, and we're actually going to walk through the process. You can see it in action. I find when it comes to technology and how to use particular strategies for marketing that it's easy to be like, oh, that makes sense. And then you try and do it for yourself and you're like, wait, what do I do? I'm lost. So you can follow along with us. We're going to do it live. Of course, if you register, then you will get the replays. Don't worry if you can't make it live, but do please join us live. We start March 11th. Okay, March 11th, and it's going to be at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. UK time. You'll notice Central is not on that list. Don't bother.
Because there's, and I'll tell you, I think I see Mountain even less, and I guess that's probably because there's all the
Mountain is even less.
But yeah, it's like it's usually Eastern and maybe Pacific, or Pacific and maybe Eastern, but yeah, Central and Mountain get very little love.
But then again, it's so funny because I know a ton of people in Calgary and they're like, it's Mountain time. It's Mountain time. But so when people, it's so funny. I always put the Eastern, I put it up. It's like this Eastern. I don't always put the Pacific sometimes, but I have gotten angry emails from people being like, you told me the wrong time. It's like, because I was putting it in Central at the beginning. I would say it's at 1 p.m. Central. And people like don't read that much. So they'd be like, you gave me the wrong time. I'm like, no, I didn't. You just can't read a clock. I'm sorry.
That is one thing that I love about like the calendars and sending calendar appointments and it just moving everything over.
Doesn't always work.
Oh no.
It doesn't always work. So sometimes people have like a default calendar. It's supposed to sense your time zone. But then I look and I go to book on their calendar and then I'm like, wait a minute. This is set to Pacific. So it's not my time zone. And it's weird because they're in Eastern, but like they're like, I don't want that to be the default. Why is that the default? So sometimes people set a time zone, some people it's supposed to sense it. And then there's the whole confusing thing where, you know, you're in another time zone when you're booking a call for your own time zone and you're
Yeah.
like, wait, what
I
time
no
is
longer
that?
I no longer change my computer. I'm like, no, I'm like, leave it in Eastern. I'm like, because then I can at least look at my clock because it doesn't know to change the in person, but not the. And I'm like, all right, screw this.
Right? It's so confusing.
All right, Kimberly, I know we have talked y'all about so much. I hope you're enjoying all of this. If you have any questions, comments, you can certainly reach out to Kimberly. I'm kind of the same way. I was early in, so I'm Tiffanie Kellog. And so it makes it nice when we can grab our name on the social stuff. She is on LinkedIn more than Facebook. Anything you'd like to leave the audience with before we sign off from our very first? And see, I told y'all it's mainly about being an entrepreneur with the side of the child-free, not the main focus. That's just one thing that we have in common. So, Kimberly, anything else that you want to leave us with on this fabulous Friday?
Yeah. Don't be scared to get started. And AI is not nearly as scary as you think it is, but you also can't ignore it anymore. As much as we would all love to and just, you know, think it's going to go away. Great example for you. I went on the Marketers Cruise in 2023, which was 2.5 months after ChatGPT opened to the public. I had been copywriting for that point at 10 years, over 10 years at that point. And first question everyone asked, oh, so do you use ChatGPT to write? It had been on the market for like 7 weeks. So it's now been a couple more years. AI can do a lot more, and there are a lot more tools out there, so you can't ignore it. So learn to make it become your friend, and don't be afraid to get started. And as I said, marketing is all about being yourself, owning your authentic self, showing up as who you are so people can really connect with you on a human level. And there's ways to use the AI to do that. So come and join me in the challenge.
Well, thank you so very much, Kimberly. Y'all, again, go to go.theaudienceconverter.com, that /thingy, stranger dash checklist. Check out Kimberly. I know I'm planning on doing the AI challenge next week. Come join us as we make that happen. It has been amazing being here with y'all. See you next Friday at 11:11 for another one of our women entrepreneurs living child-free conversations. Happy networking, y'all.